And now we're going back to our main topic today, the trouble in Polish-Ukrainian relations that has cast a shadow over the two countries' common goal, stopping Russia's imperial designs. To discuss this, I'm joined by Bohdan Nahaylo, editor-in-chief of Kyiv Post. Bohdan, good to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Just got back from Kyiv today.
Right. So, how is this viewed in Kyiv by people there?
Look, it's viewed as something very unnecessary, and there's a repulsion as to the escalation that has occurred. Many of these issues have been discussed in the past and have been handled in a civilized manner, even with the Pope of Polish origin, and then with Kwasniewski meeting with Kuchma a long time ago.
Kwasniewski.
Yes, President I'm
Kuchma,
sorry, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been there, why now? So whose interest does this serve? Clearly, there was I would say, a miscalculation on Zelensky's part in naming that unit after UPA. But it wasn't an anti-Polish gesture. It was a gesture aimed at the army. Look, we have a war on. So he's trying to win over as much support from the army, and many of those boys have been fighting for years now, and they need this, injection of patriotism, whatever. In Ukraine, UPA, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, are not viewed as anti-Polish fighters. Many Ukrainians...
But maybe this is part of the problem, that so many Ukrainians do not realize that there is a dark chapter in their heroes' conduct.
You're right. But the Ukrainians will immediately say the Poles don't know about or accept that there are many dark chapters in Poland's treatment of Ukrainians, including the interwar period. What led to the emergence of the Banderas and Szuchewiczes and the UPA in the 30s? Why did these young people resort to terrorism in the 30s in Poland?
But the scale of the atrocities in Volhynia was quite significant compared to any kind of persecution of Ukrainians in the 30s in Poland.
Yeah, the only, I think, parallel we have is the Holocaust on the scale, yes, in Europe happening at that time. But, the Ukrainians will say that they were being colonized, polonized. They didn't want to return to the other borders.
Some officials in Poland and politicians express this concern that Zelensky is conscious of this, and he knows how fragile this whole discussion is, but that he is basically bypassing Poland and he just ignores Poland. He wants to deal directly with Germany, with France, with Brussels, forgetting that Warsaw will have a say on Ukraine's EU aspirations. What's your view?
I don't think so. I think that's too simplistic. Look, he's not a historian. He's an actor. He's a PR man. And he probably was fed the wrong information to give this award. But I think he overreacted. I think the Polish president overreacted by withdrawing the medal. He should have asked his foreign minister to phone Zelensky and say, hey, this doesn't go down well in Poland. Can we somehow deal with this as opposed to going public? Which forced Zelensky and Budanov to go public, and it went from one stage to another.
Right. So today, Ukraine's foreign minister, Andrii Sybiha, was in town. How do you think? Has he managed to calm the waters?
No, but it's part of the exercise of damage containment. And I think it's positive that they met, and it sends the signal that dialogue must continue, and that after this initial intense spat, we must get back to the normal relations that have been established over the last 20 years or so at least. So I think it's a step forward. It doesn't manage everything. The worry here is that on both sides now, the far rights on both sides and the conservatives...
The radicals.
The radicals, let's call them radicals, are playing this up. So suddenly in the Ukrainian media you are having things about the Poles and in the 30s and in the 20s, and why did Pilsudski betray Petlura, and etc. If we go like this, Poland's going to be asking for Khmelnytsky's statue to be demolished, not just Banderas. I mean, it's ridiculous the extent that it's going too. So tempers have to cool, and sort of logic and reasonability prevail. I mean, it's
but do you believe Ukrainian society at large, but also its political class, realizes that without Poland's and earlier Hungary's consent, there's just no way Ukraine can join the EU?
Well, you hit on a very sore spot here, because Ukrainians suspect that there's more to this action than meets the eye. I mean, President Nawrocki's reaction to the naming of the unit after UPA by Zelensky came 2 or 3 days after he had supported Magyar, the Hungarian Prime Minister, in blocking quick access to the other clusters of the EU accession arrangements, which for Ukrainians was a signal they don't want us in the EU. Yes, they're going through the motions, they've accepted Cluster 1, but Poland deep down, or at least its conservative leadership, doesn't want us there.
But it's not just Poland or Hungary. The Germans are saying no quick fixes. Many other countries, member countries in the EU, are saying, we want Ukraine in as quickly as possible, but you have to follow the procedure. No quick fixes.
I agree with you, but it happened so dramatically that there seemed to be an alternative. The German Chancellor was providing a parallel way of getting in there without the voting rights being given,
But that's rejected by Zelensky.
Yeah. Yes, but it's part of the bargaining.
Okay.
But when you suddenly get, nobody expected Magyar to do that, and then with the Polish president straight after that saying, and I'm proud to say I supported him in that. And that sends the wrong signal too. So that inflamed the situation as well. You've got to see it from both sides.
But at the end of the day, it's Ukraine that is aiming to join the EU. So if you were advising Sybiha or Zelensky, what would you ask them or advise them to do specifically to ease the tensions in a significant way?
Cool things, don't overreact, go back, make some kind of gesture which allows you to save face within your own community, but which sends the signal that, look, this was a misunderstanding and maybe we made mistakes, I made mistakes, but let's move on. We've achieved so much together and we have a common purpose of being united. We have a common enemy. Let's work together and let's not let this interfere with the good progress that has been made. Because for the future, Poland and Ukraine, with the, shall we say, restoration of the idea of the Commonwealth in a realistic term, that's a major factor in Europe. Together they would be, if we don't look at competition between farmers and things, but politically as a bloc, it's not just a buffer zone anymore. It's a solid force in Europe for the future.
Right. Bohdan, thank you very much for these comments.
My pleasure.
And that's all we've got for you tonight, but stay with us for more news and analysis.